All right, welcome to another episode of The Catholic Couple, having fun with faith, family, and friends. I'm your co-host, Bobby Fredrickson, and with me, as always, my beautiful wife,
Katie Fredrickson.
I'm the convert Catholic, and she's
the cradle Catholic.
And here we are on a new episode with a very special guest. We have with us Dr. Ray Guarendi from, just going to read his bio real quick because it's extensive. If you guys don't know who he is, you've been missing out. Dr. Ray is a Catholic father of 10 adopted children, a clinical psychologist with over 40 years of experience, author of many books like Raising Upright Kids in an Upside Down World, and his newest book, Standing Strong, Good Discipline Makes Great Teens. He's a professional speaker, a national radio and television host. His radio show, The Doctor Is In, can be heard on over 440 stations on Sirius XM channel 130. And his television show, Living Right with Dr. Ray, can be seen on Ewtn Global Catholic Network and is aired in over 140 countries. Thank you so much for taking the time, Dr. Ray. We really appreciate it.
We're so excited to have you on. I have a notebook because as a parent who's going to be raising a teenager, I have a tween right now. So I'm taking notes on this conversation.
Bobby, Katie, glad to be with you.
Thank you so much. It's well, I was introduced to you because my mother-in-law gave me the book Raising Children in an Upside Down World, and so I read it. I was like, okay, this is somebody I put on my list that we love to interview because, you know, Katie's a Catholic school principal. We have 2 children, 10 and 7. So we want to be the best parents that we could be. We want our relationship to be better. And I love your advice that you have and the many, clips and how you go about it is so awesome.
And, Dr. Ray too, if I may, before we start having these conversations, I'm seeing as a principal, there's so many parents out there that just really don't know what to do. I feel like our culture is, I know you have that, the anti-parent culture. I think our culture is also inundating them with all these different parenting hacks, or parenting advice that are a lot conflicting. There's the rise of gentle parenting that's out there. We're seeing the opposite effect of fruit, right? Of that gentle parenting and lack of boundaries for kids. So, it's so needed. I'm finding in more and more times I'm sitting with parents, it's not so much that they are not wanting to parent, it's that they don't know what to do. And they're looking for, guidance. And so as much guidance as we could talk about, like good parenting that works. And maybe even just where do you operate from out of your, like, what is your main, your core value that you operate from in parenting, or that in your guidance on parenting?
Katie, this is not a farm in 1880 anymore.
Yeah.
There are 2 factors that you've touched upon.
Mm-hmm.
1, the culture is treacherous.
Yeah.
The culture is absolutely seductive in misshaping kids' souls right under parents' noses in their homes, even the best parents. That's 1.
Yeah.
The second thing, and I've been at this 40 some years. That's right. I started in kindergarten. The second big thing, I will now say this. I believe as a group, the experts have ruined parents.
Oh.
They've undercut their authority. They've undercut their resolve. They've undercut their peace of mind. They've undercut their steadiness. They second guess themselves. They're racked with guilt. They're afraid of causing psychological damage.
Yeah.
And the irony here, Katie, who are the only parents who even consider the experts? It's the ones trying to be good parents.
Exactly.
Bad parents could care less. They just do whatever they do to let the chips fall where they may. But the good parents, the kinds you see in your school, who are trying to do it, quote unquote, psychologically correct, are a mess.
Yeah.
They are being beaten down by 5-year-olds.
Yeah, they are.
My whole approach to all of this, all these years, and it's gotten more that way as I've been in this business, is to strengthen parents to realize, 1, they are the parent in their home. 2, authority is a very good word. If you have it, you don't use it very often. If you don't have it, you're constantly chasing some counterfeit form of it. 3, to not parent in fear. Oh, if I do this, is he going to be on Springer 22 years from now talking about me and the time I left him on the pot 4 minutes too long?
It is a fear though. It is. I've had that. Oh, I'm going to mess her up. If I say this, it becomes her, what is
What
that?
have we done?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
My
guess.
first book was titled You're a Better Parent Than You Think. It was way back. And the
Mm.
reason I wrote it was because I was in my 20s at the time and I was in a mental health center.
Mm.
I saw parent after parent after parent after parent coming into my office who would otherwise be considered decent, loving people, not enjoying their kids, not having discipline authority. They didn't have the ability to level a piece of discipline and get cooperation without a brawl.
Mm.
This was so common. This was 40 years ago. It's gotten a lot worse since.
Yeah.
The experts have just flooded parents with all kinds of nonsense that does not work. If it did work, you could say, well, good. We've learned something.
Yeah.
All those people who came before us centuries ago didn't really know anything. We're the psychologically enlightened ones now. They're the ones that just kind of muddled around. But it's a good thing we've got on the scene now because we'll tell you how to do it the proper way.
Yeah. So what's your advice on undoing that? And what's your advice to them on navigating what really is the right thing to do?
Well, I can give you the advice on that, Katie, in 3 words. Buy my books. But short of being a money changer in the temple here, first of all, a parent has to recognize, parents will say to me, how do I know I'm right? How do I know I'm right?
Yeah.
And I will say to them, there's a 3-word answer for that. You're the parent. If you say no television during the week, okay, you're the parent. If you say, I want to give a $5 a week allowance rather than a $15 a week allowance for taking the trash down, you're the parent.
Mm.
If you say, I want a 500-word handwritten essay each and every time you're disrespectful, you're the parent. There's so much of getting parenthood back into the hands of parents as opposed to into the hands of the experts.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely right, Katie. I've seen the outcome of gentle parenting. And it is anything but gentle because in the end, the parents get very frustrated. They go to confession. Bless me, Father. Before children, I was pretty nice. Now I'm not pretty or nice.
What are some techniques to help to set those boundaries? And obviously we have to stick to those once we set them. Is there like I know everyone wants a hack or some kind of easy way. I know it's not easy. But I know being consistent is very important when we say, well, what we set, that we're going to stick to it and not bend on it. What are some ways that you see that help to number one, set those boundaries, and is it just straight willpower to just hold to those standards that we're setting?
Couple of things. One, if you're trying to raise a God-seeking child, if that is your main intent, you must recognize you are going to be different from the culture around you. Yeah. You are going to be different from the people around you, oftentimes that you think would have been on your side, your own parents, your brother, some of the people in your church. They don't agree with you. Your 15-year-old is the only 15-year-old who does not have a smartphone.
Oh, yeah.
Do you realize the strength you have to stand up against a cultural tsunami like that? That's one. Secondly, if you have a rule in your home, for example, no mistreating anybody in any way. That means you can't torment a sibling. You can't taunt a sibling. You can't call a sibling names.
Ooh.
You can't yell at a sibling. Zero tolerance. Most people would look at that and say, oh, come on. That's what kids do. They're siblings. Haven't you heard about sibling rivalry? You believe it's wrong. And by the way, are we still allowed to use those words? Is that Katie, in all of the experts you've had come through your school as they tell you how to morally antisepticize the language, that behavior, unacceptable, inappropriate choices, mistakes were made. No, it's wrong to hit your sister.
Yeah.
If you have a rule, 0 tolerance, and there will be discipline consequences each and every single time, that's not cruel. Matter of fact, if you do that, you'll discipline a lot less. because the kids know. But see, the parents are afraid, one, to do that, or two, they're too lazy, or three, they think it's not going to work. I've been doing that for 4 months and it hasn't really made it that much better.
Yeah.
All kinds of objections to why they can't do these things. In my office, I have to go through those objections one at a time. I can't simply say, okay, you ask your 5-year-old to do something one time. Very simple. If he doesn't do it, you simply say, well, please go to the corner. I'll tell you when you can come out. Now, the average parent, even a good parent, can't do that. The 5-year-old will argue. The 5-year-old will melt down. The 5-year-old will come out of the corner 26 times.
Yeah.
5-year-old will start a running monologue. I hate this house. I wish Dad was my mom. He's never home. Of course, then you got the weasels. Mommy, can I come out and pray with you?
Oh my God.
See, the average parent can't do that. So one of the techniques, Bob, you asked this, one of the techniques that I give parents, and this is probably the most valuable technique I can offer.
Okay, I got my notebook.
Very, very simple, very simple. Whatever age the child, if they do something wrong, you levy whatever consequence you see fit. Corner, sit on the steps, put your head down at the dining room table. If it's an older kid, hours worth of chores, 100-word essay, define dictionary words, go lay on your bed, write 25 nice things about your brother.
Oh,
there's not 25 nice things
I've
about
done that.
him.
Oh, I feel good. I've done that one before. And they had to read it to each other because they both were fighting.
But see, when they say there's not 25 nice things about him, I just say, make them up. I do with your father. Okay. So given that, the average parent tries to do that. And the average kid, especially if they see the parent has weakened authority over these years, will immediately resist. Immediately. Here's the technique. My client called it blackout. Blackout is complete and total cessation of every single perk and privilege, except love, some kinds of food, and maybe the bathroom once a day, or if it's a boy, maybe the bathroom outside. So, that's right. We males, the world is our bathroom. I mean, that's just as simple as it is. So given that, you shut them down. Everything. If it's a 5-year-old, nothing. Stuffed animals are gone. Outside is gone. Toys are gone. Favorite shirt is gone. Favorite cup is gone. If you go out to eat, he doesn't eat. You make a sandwich before you go. He hasn't given you his corner time yet. And you simply look at him and say, oh no, we're going to grandma's and you can't play there and you can't play with your cousins. You haven't given me my corner time yet.
Yeah.
Or if it's a 14-year-old who won't write that essay, shut him down. Transportation is shut down. All favorite clothes. If it's a 14-year-old girl, the curling iron's gone. Mom, you realize what you control. You control everything.
Yeah.
You have more control than a warden does. You can decide what kind of food to put on the table. You can put green beans and onion soup because you haven't gotten the essay yet. This is not cruel. Many parents will think, oh my gosh, that sounds so harsh. It's not harsh because if you can't get a child to accept even fair, reasonable discipline, you're going to get so ugly.
Yeah.
Yell, you're going to scream, you're going to argue, you're not going to like your kid, they're not going to like you. It gets nasty in that house. You don't have that authority.
Yeah.
Blackout. I talk about it in great detail in the book, and I talk about what to do if they try to sabotage it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I like that. But I think, the hard part is that
it's sticking to it.
It's the once they start to weasel, once they really push back, it's having the fortitude to push back and and that's what it is. That's us. It's not the kids. They're going to test those boundaries,
and they do test.
And they
that's
will,
what
and they should test them a little bit. But we need to be stronger. I like that blackout. We're going to definitely try that.
I have another issue that's very common. If I could switch a little bit of a gears, I have another very popular or very like what I've never seen this until I came to the school I'm at now. Father Mike Schmitz calls them Zamboni parents, where basically I have to clear every obstacle out of my child's life in order for them to have a better life, I guess, than I've had. I guess I can't really even fully understand that, but it's anything that is a little bit even uncomfortable for their child, they want to eliminate it.
Their goal is to make them happy 24/7
which makes it just the opposite.
To eliminate all obstacles, and so if a teacher is proposing an obstacle, if another child is being mean, if they got a B or a C, like they feel like they are their child's advocate and that they are there to be Superman and rescue them from the bad obstacle that's in their way. And what is some advice that you could, give on that? Have you experienced a lot of that as well?
I call it bulldozer parents.
Oh, bulldozer parents.
They are a bulldozer.
Yeah.
Crushing and sweeping away every potential obstacle.
Yes.
One of the reasons for this, Katie, is that the experts have convinced parents that your kid's psyche is made out of spun glass. And if you accidentally drop it, it's going to shatter.
Mm-hmm.
You have so much emphasized self-image. And here's the irony of self-image. The research says it's not related to anything. Christians say, as St. Paul says, esteem others more highly than yourself. Well, that's psychological heresy.
Yeah.
In psychology, they're just telling you that child's got to just feel so good about himself. Yeah, that's good. He does need to feel good because he's a child of God. Because God says he's infinitely valuable, not because he says he's infinitely valuable. That's meaningless.
Yeah, and what about feeling good because you overcame an obstacle? That is a true feeling of goodness. That's real.
That was wisdom of the ages.
Yeah.
We've chucked the wisdom of the ages. But Katie, I'm going to throw a curveball at you.
Okay.
You are an elementary school principal at a Catholic school, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. Do your teachers have, as many Catholic schools have, a system, especially at the lower grades, where the kids, if they break a classroom rule, now, again, the experts have told the teachers, don't put your rules in the negative. Don't say no speaking out. Say raise hand to speak, right?
Yeah.
Another classic example of how the experts have more or less twisted it and said, oh, we're not allowed to say no. Okay, so that's the first thing. So that's nonsense. But let's just say that you put the classroom rules on the board.
Mm-hmm.
The child breaks a rule. Now, when my son was in Catholic school, you had 3 cards.
Mm-hmm.
Green, yellow, and red.
Yeah,
Sound familiar here, Katie?
The clip chart. A few teachers, do use that. They all have a little bit different of ways of.
So let's just look at the variant of this. This system is actually creating misbehavior. Why is this? Let's do the numbers. Let's say that you have 20 kids in a class. And let's say that every kid in the class realizes every single day he gets a warning. Warning is yellow for breaking the classroom rule. If you have 180 school days a year, 20 kids, you can potentially have 3,600 pieces of misbehavior, which your teacher can do nothing about because it's wired into the system. Now, fortunately, most kids don't figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
My son did. My son came home and said, hey, Dad, I can do something wrong every day and nothing happens. All I got to do is turn over a yellow card. And I said, well, Andrew, I'll tell you what, buddy, you're going to get 1 week of that. After that, if you turn over a yellow card, Mom and I are going to deal with you. No, Dad. No. That's the way they do it. You can have that, Dad. And I said, yeah, I know that's your teacher's rule, son.
Yeah. Mom
and Dad's rule is that you don't misbehave for your teacher at all.
Yeah.
Now, Katie, how did we know that, in fact, it was very simple? He had a sister. And that sister let us know in 3 minutes what he did wrong. She had it typed out in a report.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is so cute.
In detail.
Well, they love to tattle on each other. It's like
Our daughter does the same. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So you see what I mean about experts? Now that system is supposed to be a discipline system. In fact, if the kids would figure it out, it's a very weak system. What's wrong with saying, here's the classroom rules, and you can't break them? If you break them, here's what happens.
Yeah.
What's wrong with saying that? No,
Right.
you got to get a warning every single day. Like this third grader is too dumb to know.
Yeah, that's
You're
what
not
it's gonna
supposed
say.
to yell out an answer.
It gives them like we don't believe that they could do it. You know, it kind of placates or, patronizes them.
That's what I mean about even in a school like yours, you have situations where unwittingly you are setting up a system that allows misbehavior.
Yeah. I'm going to throw you a little curveball too. Cause I'm reading a book called Bad Therapy now, and especially this pandemic of the kids who are constantly talking about their feelings.
Yes.
And they're the literature is saying that there's no difference from thinking about yourself and having negative emotion. So what are some ways to get our kids out of that, to constantly be talking about their feelings? Like the more we look inwards, as Christ is teaching us to look about and care about the other, like this is a major problem in all the schools. It's something like 40% of kids are seeking psychological help or on antidepressants and stuff at a young age, because I think you're this gentle parenting and this fragile psyche of the kids, that there's so much of this.
Well, you treat someone like they're that way for so long, they believe that they are.
Yeah.
When I hear these things, and you're absolutely right, Bob, the surveys, the statistics show that this generation of young people is the most messed up that we have ever seen in surveyhood. Their anxiety, their depression, their suicidal ideation, their drug use, their discontent, their misery, their lack of religion is off the charts. And we say, well, how do we turn this around? Okay, well, first of all, we got a podcast here of a half an hour. So I can't give you those answers. But
really? Okay.
I will say this. I want to work with the parents willing to work with me. I'm not trying to change society. I'm trying to change you. I'm trying to change the parent who comes to me and says, okay, what's going on, man? My kid's ego is fragile. How did this happen? All right, let's talk. Because I can do that. I can change individuals. I can't alter a whole society. The other problem is this, and I don't know any way around it. I just saw a recent statistic. Young people under age 30, over 50% of them declare no religion whatsoever. When you have no religion whatsoever, when you've booted God out of your existence, you then flail around trying to establish your own moral system, your own code of conduct, whatever that might be, and you become miserable. That is what God says happens. That is the natural outgrowth of giving God the boot.
Yeah.
So until, if and when, somehow, some way, we allow God to re-enter our society through bits and pieces of however we bring him to people, like you, what you're doing, this is going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
It's just a natural outgrowth. It is A equals B. It's what happens.
Well, when you become your own God, that's a lot of pressure.
Well, you're going to make bad decisions.
Exactly. Right.
Whether people realize this or not, when they come into my office, whether they're Christian, whether they're not, the farther they get from the way God says to live your life and to do things, the more misery they bring upon themselves. So it's just a simple relationship. Okay. So in fact, we are raising very discontented kids. I see it everywhere. The explosion of quote unquote bipolar. The explosion of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, the explosion of oppositional defiant disorder, the explosion of conduct disorder. It's everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing, and this is how we're horridly over psychologized. Here's what we do. If we don't give the kid the instructions that are needed, especially to counter this culture, the kid starts to look pretty bad. Discontent, unhappy, conscienceless. And then the expert types like me look at the kid and say, oh, something's wrong with that child. We better give the child letters. The child has EIEIO, IRS, PMS. We got all kinds of letters to fling on you. When in fact,
Mm.
it is a structural problem. It's a problem with the parents and the families and the big people. That's why, guys, I don't see children. People say, are you a child psychologist? No, I see the big people.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who make the changes. Katie, if one of your teachers refers one of those kids to me, that 9-year-old that's disruptive, and says he needs counseling,
Mm-hmm.
the teacher's wrong. He doesn't need counseling. His parents need counseling.
Wow.
That's where it sits. And that's what all the research says too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's like that's, why the parents are doing it. It's a lot easier to point the finger at somebody else, your kid. They don't know any better, but instead of looking within, I always say my life changed when I took Jesus as my savior and I took responsibility for all my actions. If I'm in charge of my children, if they're misbehaving, that's on me. I'm not doing the job correctly. And I think that's part of society now wants to point the finger. It's a lot easier to blame the world instead of
that's a
looking
definite
within.
trend. It's not me. It's because of the other. Right.
My books all are aimed at putting the parent back in charge.
Yeah.
Getting parent past their worries, their objections, their fears. The kid won't like me. The kid will resent me. When he's 22, he's going to puke up religion. All of those things that parents struggle with. I got to get them past that.
Yeah.
And then I say, okay, here's a bunch of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You try them. You see how they work. One of the problems with experts is here's the trick sleight of hand that we do. We say, here is how you must do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't say I didn't warn you about all the psychological issues your child is going to have.
Mm-hmm. And it isn't one size fits all. It should be individual to, like you said, what works and what doesn't. You'll be able to see the fruit right away.
Well, the problem is you and Bob, you realize now you're a sliver of society. You know that, don't you? You are under 10% of our culture in what you believe, in how you want to raise your children. So because of that, it's automatic. How you raise your children is not going to be compared to those around you. It's not. So as a result, you have to have enough strength as a parent. I've always said this. My 10 kids are now raised. I got some going to serve a church. I got some probably go serve time. So given that, if my kids go astray, I want it to be because they had to go through me, not because I stepped aside.
Yeah.
Not because I compromised. I can live with myself if I said, well, you know what? They got their free will. They embraced the culture. They went kaflooey off in that direction. But they had to go right straight through me to do that. It wasn't because I parented in fear.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're hitting on is that we can't feel the pressure as parents. I know we're fighting it already. All of her friends, she's in 5th grade. All her friends have phones, and we're not
So you
bending.
mentioned 15. What is the age do you recommend, or is that another thing you take personal on which one is ready?
I would say it's getting worse and worse. And as all the research is starting to come out, I was screaming this 10 years ago. The research is now starting to come out all over the place. Yeah. I would say 16.
Okay. We have a family at our school that their rule is once you start driving.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind what they got to put up with. Their kid is going to look at them, especially if it's a girl, and say, how did I get stuck with you? You're a Neanderthal. You're a throwback. How can all those parents be wrong and you be right? Yeah. I resent you. I hate you. I'm going to get deceptive. I'm going to do all kinds of things behind your back. You see, by denying me this phone, you're actually going to make me a worse kid. That's the message that these parents have to contend with.
Yeah.
And they have to understand that allowing unfettered access to the universe is going to cause more problems than their kids' resentment and perhaps deception at not having that phone. We took 5 phones away from my youngest daughter because she couldn't handle them. And her friends kept giving her phones. You know, your parents are psycho. Your parents are weirdos. Your parents are nuts. Yeah. And so they get her phones. And we'd find them and we'd take them. So she's now 24. And she spends too much time on her phone. She just does. She lives on that thing. But it isn't because we denied it. It wasn't because we didn't let her have it when she was 11.
Yeah.
because she's just gotten pulled into the culture.
Right.
Yeah.
So given that,
So you're like high school, don't give them a phone, and definitely social media until they're old enough to figure that
all
out.
the research is coming in all over the place. It's a direct relationship. The more time you spend on the phone, the more time you are immersed in social media, the poorer your self-image, the more anxiety, the more depression, the more sexual confusion about who you are.
Yeah.
That's epidemic in our culture now.
Right.
Fortunately, the voices are starting to speak up
Yeah.
to say this is not good.
Yeah.
Jonathan Haidt's new book just came out. I just heard him talk. That's his 4 things he said was no cell phone until high school, no social media until after 16, no phones at all in the school, like during school. But the 4th part I thought was important is that if we're going to take back these things, that we need to give them like space and responsibility to be not free range parents per se, but to be able to give them more responsibility, to be outside, to trust them more, not to be hovering and monitoring all their kind of where they can give them other things to do if you take this away, but empower them and be with them. You know, the Jesus model is we do, I do, we do, you do, where we model what that good behavior is. We can't just say, no, no, no. We got to give them alternatives to play outside, but not to be their monitor 24/7 to instill, we're not going to be around all the time for them. So trying to have an alternative lifestyle, not just no, because Jesus said so. There needs to be some active parenting on the other side.
I will say this to fathers. If your standards are higher than the culture's, and if you're trying to raise a God-seeking child, they're going to be much higher than the culture's. Your kid is going to know your standards are different from the culture's, and that child is not going to really understand it. That 12-year-old is not going to say, gee, Dad, I'm so glad and grateful I have you because, you don't allow me to experience things that all of my friends experience. You don't allow me to have every single thing that all of my friends have. Gee, Dad, I sure am lucky. The average 12-year-old doesn't think that. So this is what I tell fathers. Whether you feel it, whether you don't, whether you are naturally that way or whether you have to fake it, you show that kid all kinds of affection, hugs, kisses, as much as you can as a dad. And you do not allow a 14-year-old to say, don't touch me in public. Don't say, I love you in public. My son was 17, played basketball at a high school. Before the games, when those guys were down on the floor just kind of putzing around, I'd leave my seat in the bleachers, go down, grab him, hug him, kiss him. And then being a good psychologist, I had to give him affirmation. I said, Petey, try not to stink the joint out. You got to say those encouraging kind of things.
Yeah.
Later on, I watched the parents watch me do this. And they're thinking, oh my gosh, he's committing adolescent heresy. What's he doing?
Embarrassing.
So I asked my son later, I said, hey, Pete, that bother you when I do that? And he said, would it make any difference, Dad? And I said, no, it wouldn't. Later on, he told me some of his teammates came to him and said, I wish my dad would do that.
Aww.
On the gym floor in front of the people in the bleachers. There is no way my kids were going to tell me I can't hug them and kiss them whenever I want.
Right.
That's what I tell fathers.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That's good advice. I that's what I try to do. And I'm not worried about what they think. I know that what we're trying to do is trying to lead them to God and to be the best they could be. And I don't want my kids to be like everybody else. No. And they shouldn't want to be like everybody else.
Isn't that in anyway? Not being like everybody else.
Well, that's the good thing about Catholicism now. It has all the
we're the rebels.
We're the rebels now. Like Chesterton says, it's virtue has all the exhilaration of a vice now because no one's doing it. It's like we're the punk rockers of society now. So embracing virtue. Yeah. So, well, it's we don't want to take up too much of your time. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, this is such good. I took
good
2
advice,
pages of
and
notes
I'm going to buy your
today.
newest book too. And anyone who's listening, look him up on Ewtn. He has a lot of those videos. Blackout is starting today. We're going to do that, and I'm going to be an obsessive hugger, kisser, embarrasser.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see all of that.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate your time, Dr. Ray.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's been a blessing.
And I have to say, you're so there. It's not parents' fault. It's this culture of this the experts overreach. And
Yeah.
I think that it's paralyzed people from being terrified of messing their kids up, so they think they have to do or not do.
And stop
certain
worrying
things.
about what other your kids think about what other people think about what God thinks, and what
Yeah.
trust God
and your own gut.
He's guiding you to
Right.
train them up and not to be worried about what other people think.
Yes.
100
it's
years
just-
ago, parents didn't overthink like this.
No.
Parents recognized this was a relationship. They were the parent, the kid was the kid. The parents set the terms, the parents set the instruction, for better or for worse. They had their own problems.
Yeah. Right.
But there was such a clear line
Mhm.
between parent and child. That line's blurred now.
Totally.
It's just blurred. And the experts have all kinds of theories, and that's what they are. They're theories. They're not research proven. They're theories
Yeah.
of somebody who has letters after their name and says, therefore, I'm smarter than you, and I'm going to tell you how to raise your child in your home. But
Right.
most of those experts are not Catholics or Christian.
Mhm.
Most of them are very secular.
Yeah.
And the evidence is on the side that it's not working. So whatever they're doing, and something needs to be different.
Something's not, but their answer is more
They're
therapy.
just keep doubling down. It's
Double down.
Yeah.
So, well, we thank you very much. We'll just
Thank you so much.
end in a
Dr.
quick
Ray.
prayer in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ray.
Hey, guys, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Get his newest books. We'll share a link in the show and on social media. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thanks.